So thank you so much, Douglas. That was absolutely fantastic. So we're now going to go into the quiz, and this is a bit of fun to test and see what you have learnt so far. So before we talk about diabetes remission, the first question we're going to talk about is the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. So diagnosis of type 2 diabetes is when your blood glucose levels are greater than 7 millimoles per litre fasting for more than 8 hours, greater than 11.1 millimoles per mole at any time, greater than 48 millimoles per mole HbA1c, otherwise known as 6.5%, all of these or none of these. So please put your answers now. And the answer is all of these, because you can diagnose type 2 diabetes in a number of different ways. And 70% of you know very well about the diagnosis of diabetes, so well done for that. It's a good starting point, because how can we talk about remission if we don't know how to make the diagnosis of diabetes? Okay, so here's the next question. Diabetes type 2 can be put into remission by everyone living with type 2 diabetes. Is it true or is it false? So Douglas, I'm sure everybody's been listening to you very closely, and they will be able to get the answer for this question. So is diabetes remission possible for everyone living with type 2 diabetes? It's false, because as Douglas quite rightly said, it's not the case for everyone. Although everyone, if they are attempting those weight loss programs, may gain some benefits, may gain lots of benefits, in fact. Blood pressure, you mentioned, Douglas, cholesterol, quality of life as well, we found locally has improved when people have gone on this sort of program. Okay, so did you know that sometimes, I mean, we're talking about type 2 diabetes, Douglas, but sometimes people are confusing what we call ketosis prone type 2 diabetes, where there's a raised level of ketones and it's initially treated with insulin. They're confusing that type of diabetes as being type 1 diabetes. And some people with that type of diabetes have then gone on to go into remission, but don't confuse it. It's completely different. So next question, type 2 diabetes can be cured. Is that true or is that false? And again, I'm sure everybody's been listening, Douglas, so they would know whether type 2 diabetes can be cured. And I'll give you a little cue here. Note which word we have chosen for the question. Is it true or is it false? Or perhaps you don't know. And it's actually false. And 64% of you are correct with that. Cure is something that's permanent. We're not talking about a cure here. We're talking about remission. And remission is something that can change. So it's important to be aware of the terminology and the language that you're using. We're talking about remission of type 2 diabetes. So Douglas, that has been excellent. And we're going to go back to you now to hear some more. Thank you so much. So Douglas, thank you so much for your initial presentation. It was so clear, it was so concise, it took us through all the steps. And now we want to particularly focus on people of Black heritage, African Caribbean origin. So you're going to tell us about type 2 diabetes remission in people of African and African Caribbean origin. Thanks, Douglas. Over to you again.
Thank you, Joan. Yes, as you said, yes, we are going to go through how people from Black backgrounds can also achieve remission. I have to caveat this that we don't have much data on how people from Black backgrounds can go into remission, but the data we have is enough for us to agree that people from Black backgrounds can go into remission at the same rate as people from white backgrounds. At least that is what we know now. So if you look at data from bariatric surgery, um, and this is coming from a meta-analysis. For those of you who do not know, a meta-analysis is where you take different studies and you pull together all their data to make a meaningful deductions out of it. For this particular meta-analysis, it showed that if you take somebody from a white background and someone from a black background and they undergo the same bariatric surgery, the person from the white background is more likely to lose more weight than the person from a black background. However, the person from the black background is more likely to achieve diabetes remission. So, what this is showing us is that diabetes remission is as likely in people from black background as it is in people from white background. If you also look at the data from lifestyle, and for that, we have very good data from Barbados in a small study where they put people on about 8 weeks of liquid diet. So that would be meal replacement diet. And they were able to show that those people are not only able to lose the same amount of weight as people from white backgrounds, but also the amount of remission that were achieved were similar from people from white background. So these pieces of data reinforces our belief that remission is as achievable in people from black backgrounds as it is from people from white background. And the key is that you are able to be supported to lose weight because it is the weight that you lose that will increase your chances of remission. But we also know that you can lose your weight through different means. Apart from bariatric surgery that I've mentioned, different diets can help people to lose weight, specifically in people with type 2 diabetes. Things like healthy eating, which many people will refer to as low-fat diet, is effective in helping people to lose weight. Low carb and lower carb diets, very effective in helping people to lose weight. Meal replacement, as I mentioned previously, but also Mediterranean diets, and then the very low calorie or low energy diets are all diets that have been researched and have been proven to be effective in helping people to lose weight. There are other diets, but unfortunately, these diets have not been as researched as the 5 that I've just mentioned. And for me, people from black backgrounds have different options in terms of how to approach weight loss, Joan.
Douglas, that's fantastic. It's wonderful to know that it is possible. And it's wonderful to know that there are many different choices, because I think a lot of people feel that perhaps you only have one choice, and that might be, a particular form of losing weight. But you have shown that there is really strong evidence in African Caribbean populations that you can use a variety of methods to lose the weight and possibly put your type 2 diabetes into remission. Yeah, that's fantastic, Douglas. I'll hand back over to you.
Perfect. So when people are trying to lose weight, the first thing that they try to do is perhaps just reduce the amount of food that they eat. So without any fancy named diet at all, if you are able to reduce the amount of food that you're eating, then you'll be able to lose weight. So in this particular picture, I've shown you a plate of rice and peas. If you are able to reduce the amount of the rice, you are able to reduce the amount of the fish that you're having, and then you add more vegetables, definitely the amount of calories that you're eating will be less the amount of carbohydrate you're eating will be less, and that will help you if you're doing that consistently to lose weight. But many people prefer to approach weight loss by following a specific diet. And in these circumstances, it is important that once you've chosen the diet, you get the support that you need to be able to follow it safely. One of such diets is the very low calorie or the low calorie diet. So normally the very low calorie is where you eat less than 800 calories per day. And to put that in context, an average man will be eating about 2000, 2005 calories. An average woman will be eating about 1005, 2000 calories a day. So to move from 2000 to 800 is a huge jump, which is why not everybody is able to approach this diet. But with support, we know that some people are able to do that. It is difficult to use your usual normal foods to follow a very low or low calorie diet. The reason being that it's unlikely that you will get your vitamins and minerals, which is why most people approach such diet by using what we call the meal replacement products. And the meal replacement products are milkshakes and soups, which have all the nutrients, also all the micronutrients, so your vitamins and your minerals are in it so that you don't lose out. And because it is not food, as in the food, our own traditional foods, it is recommended that you don't follow this for long. So normally 3 months, maximum 6 months is what you want to do. These products are EU regulated, which means that they have to meet a particular set of category, particular sets of regulations in order for them to be able to market it. My advice would be that you don't go and buy this and do it on your own. If you're going to do it, you have to speak to your GP, especially if you are on diabetes medications, Joan.
Yes, as you said, it's a dramatic change. But for the people I know, Douglas, it's an even more dramatic change because they're usually eating more than the average calories. Yeah, you're going to say.
Yeah, I was just saying that, yeah. So in the direct studies, definitely, the key was that these people had support. That's the key. And without the support of not only your GP but the support of your family, it is almost impossible. So it is because you might be the only one doing this, and the whole family is eating, as I showed, jollof rice. It will be difficult for you to be looking at them whilst you are just sipping milkshake. So you definitely need the support of your family to be able to do this.
Absolutely, because life is still happening, isn't
Mhm.
it? You know, celebrations are happening, birthdays are happening, festivities are happening.
Mm.
And so you have to, it's a big commitment. Thanks very much, Douglas. I'll hand back to you.
Yeah. So the next one is a low carb or a lower carb diet. So internationally, the best definition for a low carb diet is where you are eating less than 130 carbs, 130 grams of carbs per day. On average, many people are eating about 200 grams of carbs per day. So to be able to reduce it to less than 130 is a lot. And many people, when they do that, they see dramatic changes in their blood sugar levels, but also when they are able to persist, they are able to lose weight. So this is just an example of how that may look. So for example, when you are reducing your carbohydrates, it means that you'll be eating more fat, you'll be eating more proteins. So for example, in the morning, you could have 2 boiled eggs with some slices of avocados, and in the afternoon you could have some salad with tuna and some avocados, and then in the evening that is where you might bring in your starchy carbohydrates such as your yam or plantain with some stew and some chicken breast. It is also important that you maintain some amount of fruits in there. So fruits can be your snack. The key to lower carb or low carb diets is that you choose the right fats and the right proteins to replace your carbohydrates. And there's good evidence that for many people, they are able to lose weight, they are able to put their diabetes into remission, they are able to reduce their diabetes medications when they go on low carb or lower carb diets, Joan.
Thanks, Douglas. And when we were doing our background, looking into diets, traditional diets for people from Black African, Black Caribbean, and other ethnic minority populations, we found that a lot of people have a lot of their intake from carbohydrates. So you mentioned reducing the carbohydrate content. We found quite often the people were having more than that 130 grams of carbohydrate in one meal, much more. If you're talking about, here I am with my average people that I know, of more than 130 grams of jollof rice, rice and peas on one plate, at a time. So again, it is going to be quite a significant change if people are going to try to follow a low or a lower carbohydrate diet. And there are options for doing this. And, thanks for giving us some options that people from our communities would be able to at least start to explore and follow. So thanks very much, Douglas. Over to you.
Yeah. So normally, and it's a very good observation that you make. Most of our main meals are based on starchy carbohydrates. So whether it's plantain, yam, rice, all the rest. Which is why normally when I'm advising people, I say try and go lower for your breakfast, your lunch. So if you try and persist with the breakfast and lunch, then you have the opportunity to perhaps bring in your starchy carbohydrates in the evening. And that's how many people are able to approach it. But the key to a successful lower carb, lower or low carb diet is that you first of all take away the carbohydrates that are not healthy. So for example, things like your energy drinks, your malt drinks, your biscuits, cakes, and fruit juices, they all contribute carbohydrates that are not healthy. Another arm of carbohydrates that are not healthy are your refined breakfast. So breakfast cereals like your cornflakes, your white bread, they are all unhealthy. So things like your white rice as well, very unhealthy. So those are the ones that you take out first. But whilst you're doing that, you maintain some of the good carbohydrates, which will be mainly your vegetables, your pulses, but also our things like your yam, your plantain, which have not been processed. They are relatively healthier than your white rice and your bread. You also want to have some amount of dairy in your diet, and dairy provides us with some amount of carbohydrates. So your milk can help because it provides you with your calcium, which is important for our bones. But even when you are going on a lower carb or low carb diet, there are certain fruits that are lower in carbs. So things like your berries, your citrus fruits, and then also all the stone fruits like your melon, they are lower in carbs, Joan.
That's wonderful. I love the way you said about the drinks first, because so many people don't class drinks as being part of their carbohydrate intake, part of their calorie intake, part of anything to do with the carbs and the cals. And it is something that is sort of set aside as though that doesn't count. And yet a huge amount of calories And quite a significant amount of carbohydrates can actually come from things like carrot juice, the malt drinks, as you said, those milk-based drinks that people will buy in tins. I'm not going to name any particular makes, but people aren't counting that because that's alongside the food and it's only the food that they're counting. So thank you very much for highlighting the drinks. First of all, it's really important and really important to still have a balanced diet.
I always tell people that I see in clinics that you have to look at what has happened to food from the farm. So after the farm, what has happened to the food before it gets to your plate. If you take things like plantain and yam from the farm, the only place you might go is your local shop or to the supermarket. But if you take things like bread, white rice, what happens is that from the farm, it goes to another manufacturer to then polish it before it comes to your local store or your supermarket. In that process, it has been processed, it has been refined, and they are not as good as our plantain or our yam, which comes straight from the farm to our kitchen. Look at food that way, and you will always be able to know which foods have not been processed. So the other thing is that when you have reduced your carbohydrates, naturally you'll be eating more fat, and there's nothing wrong with eating more fat. Up in the past, we had demonized fat as because it has more calories, putting weight on us. But there's more and more evidence that there are different types of fat, and depending on the type of fat that people eat, they are able to affect their health but also weight differently. So the idea is that you want to reduce saturated fat that is coming from mostly processed meat such as bacon, ham, and corned beef, and also reduce your red meat that will be coming from your beef and pork. You also want to reduce saturated fat from processed sources such as ghee, lard, butter, and the rest. Those are the ones that you want to reduce. But then you want to maintain more of the good fat, which will be coming from things like your oily fish, your avocados, coming from your nuts, and any type of nuts at all, so long as it's unsalted, is healthy for you. And then you also want to have some vegetable oils, eggs, and also our good old chicken, which will give you the good type of fat, Joan.
So, I mean, again, it's that sort of general principle of the less that is done to the food before it gets onto your plate, the more likely it is to be healthy. So the same thing is applying with the fats. So when it's processed and it's been through all of those different ways, then it's less likely to be healthy fat, as opposed to something like the oily fish, which is still looking similar to the fish that was swimming in the sea. So, you know, it's an easy way to think, is this going to be healthier for me? Or is this not going to be healthier for me? So those things that you see in the takeaway or the, you know, behind the glass where they've been dipped in fat and they don't look anything like they would have done on the farm. So chicken, which doesn't look anything like the chicken anymore, is not likely to be as healthy for you as opposed to perhaps food that you've cooked yourself. That's the other thing as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I usually encourage people to cook from the scratch because not only are you able to know what is going on, but key to us is the amount of salt that it goes into processed food. And we know that people from our backgrounds are more likely to have high blood pressure, which is a key risk factor for many of the diabetes complications. But also, we know that even if you are not able to go into remission, losing weight alone can help you to to reduce the amount of diabetes medications that you have. It will help you to feel better in yourself. It will help you to do many of the things that require you to be mobile, such as climbing up stairs and things like that. And crucially, we also know that losing weight in itself can help you with your mental well-being. So even though we are talking about remission, which is the ultimate goal, losing weight has a lot of benefits which are also important, Joan.
Thank you. Thank you, Douglas. And one of those benefits, I mean, there's so many benefits, as you said, in terms of your mental well-being, in terms of things like your HbA1c, your blood pressure, the lipids, and maybe even things like reduction of medication as well can be achieved on this pathway. Yeah. Thank you, Douglas.
So the last diet that I wanted to explain to people is the Mediterranean diet. And it has the name Mediterranean diet because it started from the Mediterranean regions. But now many people are adopting it, and it is possible to adopt it even with our foods. What it is that you are eating more fruits and vegetables. You are eating less of refined foods. You are including more unrefined foods, as I mentioned, such as your fruits and vegetables. You are eating more fish instead of meat, and you are eating more nuts. You are eating more seeds. And these are all less processed foods. So, for example, if you look at what constitutes a Mediterranean diet, nuts is up there, fruits and vegetables up there, your pulses up there, and then you are reducing things like your fizzy drinks, as I mentioned previously, your energy drinks, your milky drinks that have sugar added to them, and you are also eating less red meat and processed meat. And there's good evidence that when you do this, it can help you to lose weight even without counting calories. It can also help you to go into remission. But there's also good evidence that for people with type 2 diabetes, it can help you reduce your risk of heart diseases, Joan.
Fantastic, Douglas. I'm thinking that we need to try to make this more personalized, and we need to change the name of Mediterranean. I know it was where it originated and where the studies have been done. So we have to find a way to make this, more like a global majority diet, traditional diet, and call it something like that, so we can make it more bespoke to us. Douglas, that's been brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for all that advice. And I think you've got another slide that's going to give us some advice about where we can get some more information if we want to. And that's brilliant. And we'll put some other resources in the chat as well. Thank you. Thank you so much, Douglas.
Pleasure.